Today I'm going to cover more of the stuff right behind me here, which says marginal and average costs. But before we jump into that, and remember, this is in the long run. I mean, this is in the short run, excuse me. But before we jump into that, I really want to cover the homework lesson, homework answer from last lesson, which is a lesson 17 homework question. The question was that I have three costs to think about: total fixed cost, right? 1, total variable cost, 2, and that together forms total cost. I asked you to graph it. The answer is right here to my left. And basically, the point of this graphing exercise is to understand a couple things. Is to understand first that your total fixed cost doesn't change, right? No matter what I'm doing, right? This is pizza per minute. In that example we had in the last class, we said, well, if I'm continuing my level of output, right, my fixed costs don't change. They're constant, okay? Next one was TVC, right, which is total variable costs, okay? Now, those do change depending on the output. And we said that as we produce more, right, unlike total fixed costs, they actually skyrocket, right? Your total variable costs actually increase by a lot once they start, you reach infinity, or you rather increase your level of output. The other one was that total costs are the, the sum of these, right? So one of the key things to understand, in my opinion, about total cost is the fact that as you produce more, right, or more pizza, or more, I don't know, it could be anything, right, more TVs, more newspapers, whatever it is, the point is that total costs, as you produce more, start to look a lot like TVC, okay? And that's because as you produce more, TFC, or total fixed costs, don't matter as much, right, because for the amount of quantity you're producing, they don't, in relation, and relatively, they don't matter too much, but TVC actually do matter a lot. So that's the major point behind the graph over there. And that being said, let's jump into the new stuff, okay? The exciting term that we're going to start off with is the average fixed cost. Let's start off with defining average fixed cost, okay? Average fixed cost. Average analysis really is another way of kind of looking at your costs for anything. Again, as I said before, all of this stuff is really important if you're producing something. So say you, whatever grade you're in, say that you're tutoring in English, right? So, we don't do analysis for like, okay, well, what's my marginal cost, what's my, average cost of, tutoring a kid. But say you have a company of, an education company, then you're really looking at any cost you have, right? So it's like, are my average costs too high? Is my marginal cost too high? So all of this is really important, even though they look sort of boring right now in terms of theoretical stuff. It's really cool to think about, costs when you're making something or producing something. So for all of you people, who are thinking, why am I ever going to use this, right? It's really important in terms of, when you produce a product or you have a business of your own, right, to think of it and saying, okay, how do I bring those costs down? How do I increase my revenue and things like that, okay? So that being said, let's jump to the theoretical definition here. And theoretical definition of AFC is that it's the total fixed cost divided by the output, right? So it's the total fixed cost divided by output, okay? And, average analysis is always easier, and even obviously marginal analysis is always easier. In a formula, I personally love it because I kind of understand in terms. For those of you who need the definitions, also really important, okay? That being said, let's, think about it. Okay, so what is AFC? What is it talking about? It's saying it's the total cost, right? Your total fixed cost, right? TFC, remember that term from last time, divided by the output, which is Q, okay? So that is AFC. Pretty straightforward, right? We know the formula. Well, we said that AFC, average fixed cost, is the total fixed cost, right, over the amount of amount of output that you have, which is Q. Okay, that's fine. Let's move on to the next one, okay, which is your average variable cost, which is pretty similar to average fixed cost, right, if you think about it. Let's see. Average variable cost, variable. Okay, average variable cost is the following. It says it's the total variable cost divided by the output, right? So again, we're changing the fixed to variable, right? We're changing the AFC to AVC now, right? We're changing TFC to TVC again. And that's all you really do, right? So average analysis is really similar. AVC and AFC are really similar to each other in the way we write the formula, or, excuse me for erasing that, or the way we define it, okay? So understand the differences between that, okay? And finally, you know, the last one I want to cover is average total cost, right? Which you can probably guess is sort of similar, right? So average total cost. What is average total cost? Average total cost is equal to AVC plus, you can probably guess it, AFC. Okay? So AVC, which is average variable cost, plus AFC, average fixed cost, is equal to your average total cost. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Or you can say it's just TC, your total cost, divided by quantity. Okay? Which is, you know, the formula for average total cost. So with these three terms, average fixed cost, average variable cost, and average total cost, we've sort of covered the analysis for average, you know, costs. That being said, let's go back to that marginal cost real quick, okay? The reason I want to talk about marginal cost real quick is because when you think about marginal cost, and by now, hopefully you guys know the term marginal cost, right? And what the formula is, there's a minor tweak to marginal cost, which I want to show, just in case it shows up on some multiple choice question, just to trick you guys. And I'll tell you why. Okay, so what do we say? Real quick, this is a pretty quick recap, okay? MC, right? Excuse me, MC, right? What was it equal to? Okay, we said marginal cost is equal to the change in my total cost, right? Change in TC divided by change in Q, okay? We said that before, we've seen this before, okay, yeah, I get it. Okay, so why do we say, what's the trick here? Well, understand that total cost, right? To my left here, you can probably see it, is equivalent to TVC and TFC, okay? So total costs are a sum of variable costs and fixed costs. All right, I get that. Now, here's the thing, right? When we do marginal analysis, we're always saying, okay, so if I change the level of output, how is my total cost being changed, right? If my total fixed cost is not changing at all, right? Another way of writing this is actually saying that it's the change in TVC over change in Q. Okay? Does everyone see that? The reason why we can say that it's equal to the delta of TVC over delta Q is the fact that TFC doesn't change, right? It's kind of like a constant. I'll show you what I mean. If you have total cost of, you know, this is your total cost, right? This is your total fixed costs, right? This is your total variable costs, right? This is 0. This is, you know, 1 and 2, right? Same for some reason that my total fixed costs are fixed at, you know, let's say, actually, let's just choose another example. Let's say this is 2, let's say 4, okay? My total fixed cost is always 1, okay? So 0, 0, obviously my total cost is 0, both these have to be 0. Let's just say they're fixed at 1, okay? So this has to be 1, this has to be 3, okay? Because total fixed cost plus total variable cost is equal to your total cost. Everybody, hopefully everyone understands that. If you look at this, my total cost, right, from here to here has jumped by 2, okay? Has jumped by 2. My total cost again here has jumped by another 2. But if you look at this, my total fixed cost is always jumping by 1, okay? It's only 1, right? 0 to 1. Actually, in this case, it probably has to be 1, 2. I probably messed this up because I actually, in the definition, I said that total fixed cost will stay constant no matter what, okay? So let's just take, for this example, that's 1, 1, 0. Total variable cost was 0. Total fixed cost is 1. Total cost was 1. We're going to change these numbers a little bit, okay? And I want to use another table so it's more clear for you guys. Instead of just making numbers up, I'll actually show you in a table, okay? So this adds by 1. You know, this goes up by 2, okay? But the point is my total fixed cost cannot change, okay? So this is actually plus 0, plus 0. You guys get the point. Total fixed costs never change. My total variable costs, however, always change, okay? They always do, because depending on how much output you have, my total variable costs change, okay? But just imagine for your marginal cost, the reason why I'm putting all this is because the formula of marginal cost delta TC over delta Q, or change in total cost over change in quantity, can also be written as the following: change in total variable costs over the change in quantity. Okay, so we understand this, we understand the formulas. Let's try to see how we can get a table going, and then we can actually see how they change. Okay, so I'm going to erase this side of the board, just continue to use this, and try to draw a table so everyone knows clearly what we're all talking about. Okay, so the first one obviously is going to be, you guys can probably guess it, going to be probably your output, right? So let's talk about this, okay? So total product is going to be your first one, right? So the first lesson is going to be my TPL, okay? That's your total product of labor, okay? That's my first section. Okay, cool. What's my second one? It's your marginal cost, MC. Guys, the reason why I'm not writing the words down is because when you have like a homework problem and you're trying to solve it, it really helps to just have the letters down, okay? So understand that. And, you know, in my opinion, they're pretty straightforward. You know, MC stands for marginal cost, TP stands for total product of labor. If it requires you going back to the book and look at it and like understand the abbreviations, but know that when you use it, it's a lot easier when you use abbreviations, okay? So I'm still gonna state them, I'm still gonna say total product of labor, but just for practice sake, I'm gonna write down the abbreviations, all right? So I promise it's not because I'm lazy, okay? Anyways, this is AFC, okay? This is average fixed costs, okay? Next one is gonna be, you can probably guess this one, is probably AVC, right? And finally, this is probably gonna be ATC, right? All right, so first one is, let's start with 0. That's an easy one, right? 0, my marginal cost, everything just is 0, okay? All right, so let's talk about the first unit, right? So the first unit is my total product of labor. For first one, I produce 1. Okay, my marginal cost is gonna be $5. This is gonna be given for you guys, okay? And hopefully you guys don't have to calculate what's going on here. My average fixed cost is $6. Okay, my ABC is $5, and my ATC is $11. All right, so how are we getting these magic numbers of marginal cost, AFC, ABC, and ATC? The reason is being that we actually have another set of data that for total variable cost, for total cost and total product of labor. So what I'm going to do is actually use this side of the board to elongate the table and give you guys more data, okay? So we kind of understand how we're getting these numbers. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this graph and draw more rows so everyone understands where we're getting AVC and ATC from. So for those of you who remember what ATC and ABC and AFC all were about, right? We said that, well, how do we define, right? We said that MC is equal to the change in TC over the change in quantity, right? We said AFC is the total fixed cost over quantity. We said that AVC is the total variable cost over quantity. Okay, so that being said, let's add more, lines. Okay, so we said, okay, so the next section we're talking about is actually how much product are we creating. Well, TPL has been constant. We've had the same chart in both sides, but the one that I really want to add about right now is about total fixed costs. Okay, and then I'm going to add total variable cost. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to add total cost. Okay, for 0, obviously I'm going to sort of use the 0 variable cost here. It's not going to change. Fixed costs, I said, fixed costs are still present for 0, right? So I'm going to have $6 here. Okay, and then your total costs are going to be $6, which is your TFC plus TVC is equal to TC, $6. Okay, so let's talk about the first unit. Okay, so we produce one product. Okay, so what happens to my total fixed cost? Total fixed cost is not going to change, right? It's still going to be $6, correct? My total variable cost, however, does change. It goes from 0 to 5. Okay, and this one is 6 plus 5. You probably can guess it. It's $11. Okay, now let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that how do we get from these, how do we get ATC, ABC, and AFC, and MC, okay? So what is TFC? TFC is total cost by quantity, okay? Correct? All right, so I got total cost, which was here, you see it as $11, okay? And I divided, I'm sorry, that's not TFC. TC over Q is your average total cost, which is ATC, 1 over. TC over Q is average total cost, okay? I apologize, that's not TFC. All right, so we've gotten, for the first unit, we said $11 was the total cost. So we go over here to the ATC, okay? We said, what is our total cost? Well, it said $11. All right, what's the quantity we're producing? 1. So 11 over 1 is 11, okay? That's how you get the average total cost. You say, take the total cost divided by the quantity, you get the average total cost. Okay, moving on to average variable cost. Same formula, right? Again, what we do here, I'm going to write on top of ABC, I'm going to write down what the formula is. ABC is equivalent to, I hope you guys remember from a couple of minutes ago, we said ABC is equal to TVC divided by the quantity. Okay, what is TVC? Look back here, you said TVC is 5 by 1, divided by 1, right? 5 over 1 is 5. Okay, we got that. Again, same formula. What is AFC? Well, AFC is TFC divided by Q. Q is 1. We're lucky in this example. Q is 1. And AFC is $6, right? I mean, total fixed costs are $6. 6 over 1 is that. Now, MC is a little more complicated, right? Not really for this example, but in terms of formulas. MC, in terms of formula, I'm going to write down the formula just in front of, on top of MC, just like we did before, is the change in delta is change, okay? The change in, let me write that a little clearer for you guys so you guys can see it. Delta of total cost, TC, divided by the delta of Q. Okay? So let's look at it. How did total cost change? Total cost went from over here to my right, right? Going back all the way here, we said total cost went from $6 to $11. Okay? What is that? What's the change in that? Well, 11 minus 6 is 5. Okay? So the change in TC was 5. Okay, we got it. What's the change in quantity? We went from 0 to 1. So walking back over here, okay, when I say like that TC over Q, delta TC over delta Q, we said that change in TC was 5. We said the change in Q was 1. 5 over 1 is 5. And that's exactly how we get MC. I'm going to go ahead and do for 2 and 3 as well so everyone understands. Okay, so let's talk about 2. What happens if I have 2 products? Okay, so 2, we said, I'll write down the, actually, let me go over here, write down TFC, TVC, and then TC, and then we'll go over here and then fill in the analysis over here. Make sense? All right, so for 2, we said, okay, well, my total fixed cost, we know this already, doesn't change, right? We said for 0, 1, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or infinity, your total fixed costs don't change. Okay, so it's still $6. Okay, I hope everyone understands that. Total fixed costs don't change. Okay, what is my TVC? Well, my TVC is given as $8. Okay. 6 plus 8, TFC plus TVC is equal to TC, which is 14. Okay? Now, before I walk in there and start filling in the items, just because I am nerdy like this, I'd like to finish up my analysis over here, right? So I like to say that TC went from 11 to 14, that's a positive 3, right? 14 minus 11 is 3, it went up by 3. Just because I know in the marginal analysis, I know I have to use this. Okay. Going over here, let me fill up ATC and ABC and AFC. Okay, so ATC, we said ATC, the way we define ATC is that it is equivalent to total cost over quantity. What's my total cost? Total cost looking over there is $14. Okay, 14, I produced 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So this is going to be 7. Average total cost is 7. Okay, let me make sure I get this right. Average total cost is 7. Okay, we're on the same page. All right, so ABC. ABC is total variable cost over quantity. What's my total variable cost? Total variable cost here, it says $8. Quantity is 2. 8 by 2 is 4. Okay, so it's 4. ABC is 4. Let me make sure we're doing well. Okay, 4, cool. Average fixed costs, again, don't change except for the fact that, total fixed costs never change, but the quantity changes, right? Total fixed cost is $6. Quantity was 2, so this has to be 3. Okay, let's finish marginal cost. Marginal cost is delta TC over delta Q. How much did my total cost go from 1 to 2? Well, it changed, I said, over by 3, right? Went from 11 to 14. So it's 3 by 2, which is 1.5. Okay? So it's $1.50. All right. So let me make sure I get everything. Marginal cost changed by $3. F2. Okay. Just making sure I got everything right. All right. So that being said, let's talk about how do we go from 3 units to filling up all the information again. Walking over here, again, I want to do this one more time, and this is going to be the final time so everyone will understand what's going on here. One of the things I like to do is say that, let's talk about your total cost, total variable cost, and total fixed cost. Total fixed cost, we said that well, this is one's easy, never changes, $6. Okay. And then total variable costs were $8 in this one, and then we said, okay, well, it is $13 in this one, all right? 13. Okay, so then we said 13, and said 19 is the total, right? 6 plus 3, 13 is 19. That's $19. There's a change of $5, correct? Change of 5. Okay. Walking back over here, I look at my ATC. ATC is my TC over Q. TC is 19. 19 over 3 happens to be $6.33. Okay. Average variable costs are TVC over Q. TVC happens to be 13. 13 over 3 is $4.33. And obviously you can use a calculator for this. I've already computed the values, so I'm able to do it. So TFC is $6 over 3, which is 2. Okay. So what you can notice is actually as you produce more, AFC is actually decreasing, right? Okay, so lastly, what's my MC? MC is the change in TC. What's the change in TC? Well, my change in TC is 5. And what's the change in quantity is 1. So 5 by 1 is 5. Now, the reason why I am talking about the formulas is not only to teach you guys that every time we're doing something with the formula, one of the most important things is to catch myself from making errors as well, just like you should too, right? The last time I computed for the second one, I said, okay, what's the change in total cost? I said, well, total cost went by $3. It went up. Went 11 to 14, went $3. And I said, quantity is 2. Let me take 3 over 2. That's 1.5. Well, the thing is that it's always important to understand the formula, right? The formula for marginal cost is actually the change in total cost over the change in quantity. And I didn't account for that in the second one, right? So I said, let me tell you what mistake I made. I said that delta TC, I said MC, okay, is actually equal to delta TC over delta Q. Instead, what I did was, in the second one, I calculated delta TC over Q. I didn't say delta Q, right? The reason why delta Q is pretty important is because it says, well, what's going to happen for every change I have in quantity? And this time, I'm always changing in 1, right? So whatever my total cost changes in this particular example is going to be my MC because my delta Q is always going to be 1. Okay? So this one is actually 3 because my total cost changed by $3 and divide that by 1. And that's the answer. Okay? So, just looking at these values, right, I believe the rest of them are correct. But the point is to understand what is a specific formula for each of these, costs, right? And let me make sure that I don't make a mistake, okay? Because I really recommend it in the beginning levels of writing down the formulas just like this one, right? So that we don't make simple mistakes that is going to finally affect your grade on the test. Okay, so that being said, you can always ask your teacher to give you more problems or whatnot, and we'll try to do more sample problems in the later coursework. But really understand mathematically how this involves, and actually doing it is always way better because you just get to understand the economic part of it and how that actually applies to application versus theory. Okay, so we're good here. We're going to move on to graphs. I really want to graph, your productivity and costs, so you understand that. I believe we actually went over MPL and APL. We're going to move on to ATC, AFC, and all those fun graphs. So let me erase this board for now and draw the graphs behind this. Okay? Hopefully, using these graphs, in your paper or whatnot, you guys can kind of graph the data, right? So that you understand how these graphs work. Because oftentimes when I fill my data in, I really find it helpful to just graph it as well. So I understand, okay, well, my TFC is behaving like this, TVC is behaving like this, right? So you really understand the trends, okay? Okay, that should be good for now. All right, so the graph we're going to draw today is going to be with average and marginal cost. It's going to kind of summarize all the information that we've went over today, right? So I'll end the class with this, right? So it's going to be average and marginal costs. Okay? So average and marginal cost. All right, so let's take the graph. Again, as I said before, it's really important to have the X and Y axis. On the X axis, this is output, okay? Okay, what's my Y axis? Well, it's the various costs. I'm just going to leave a dollar sign for now. So it's my various costs that I'll have. One of the first ones I have is my AFC. Why is this? Okay, fixed cost is always the easier one to get. As you notice from our trend in that board over there, AFC is always decreasing. Okay, so when I have an AFC, it kind of always looks like that. Okay, it's not going to hit zero, obviously, but as you produce infinity, it's gonna try to approach zero. Okay, so this is my AFC, and that's exactly how it looks. Okay, because as you increase the amount of output, your AFC, which is your TFC over Q, right? Your quantity is increasing, your TFC stays the same. What's going to happen? It's going to turn into a zero number. Okay, so that's why it's decreasing. Okay, so that's your AFC. It's pretty easy and straightforward. Next is going to be my average variable cost. Okay, so how does my average variable cost look? Average variable cost kind of looks like this. Okay, kind of dips down a little bit, right, and then goes up. Okay, so that's my AVC, average variable cost. Okay, now let's get the total cost, right? So let's talk about total cost. My total cost is, as I said before, it's sort of going to look like AVC as such. It's going to come from here because this is the addition of fixed cost and variable cost, right? It's going to have the same minimum sort of as your average variable costs, but the same thing we talked about before, average variable cost and average total costs, right? They're going to sort of look similar as we approach infinity. So in fact, I can almost like do a little more closer thing because as you produce infinity, it's going to come closer and closer. Now, this is the key part to it. The key part is actually looking at your marginal cost, okay? Your marginal cost is kind of like your Nike just do it sign. Okay, it's just a check, a swoosh. But here's the key, okay? Your marginal cost, I'm going to write this down right here, okay? MC intersects, okay, intersects AVC, okay, AVC and ATC at minimum, at their minimum points. What does that mean? Kind of looks like this, okay? Kind of looks like that, okay? So this would be your marginal cost, okay? This is your marginal cost, MC, okay? Kind of looks like that. It's intersecting at their minimum points, okay? That's exactly how a marginal cost looks like. A marginal cost line will always intersect the AVC, average variable cost, average total cost at their minimum points. And that for you is like the average and marginal cost analysis as such. And I think it's a good way of kind of doing a summary of the things we talked about, which was average cost and marginal costs in depth, and kind of defining the terms and graphing them and doing a table with it. So, as usual, I'll leave you guys with a particular question as such. The homework question today is going to be define me the formulas. I think they're very important for MC, marginal cost, average variable cost, average fixed cost, and average total cost. Again, it's 4 formulas I want from you guys in the next lesson. I want the formulas for marginal cost, average total cost, average fixed cost, and average total cost. Okay? So if you can get those for me, that would be amazing. I'll see you guys in the next lesson. But before I do that, let me make sure that the theoretical part of this is kind of hit home. Understanding marginal and average analysis for cost is really important in understanding how a producer, right, thinks about every unit I add or every unit I make, okay, every laborer I add or every unit I make, how are my costs changing, okay? The analysis of this is really important to a producer because he can understand, is it worth it to add that extra worker? Is it worth it to produce, 10,000 pizzas instead of 20,000 pizzas, okay? So these are the questions you need to be asking yourself in understanding why this is important. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next lesson. We'll talk about long run costs and then we'll move on to more exciting concepts in microeconomics. So thanks a lot for joining me for this lesson. I'll see you guys in the next one.